Would you be interested in a medicine that reduces stress, increases happiness, and makes you live longer? What if I told you that medicine is free and that there are no negative side effects? The medicine I'm talking about is not packaged as a pill, powder, or potion. Rather, it's delivered to your body and mind through your service to others. When I was fresh out of college, I landed my dream job with the city of Los Angeles as a management trainee. I had visions of rising through the ranks of government, working alongside other enthusiastic young people in an exciting department like water and power. Instead, I was offered a position with the Department of Aging that delivered Meals on Wheels, job training, and other essential services for the city's low-income seniors. I'm not proud to admit that I almost turned that job down when I learned that most of my colleagues would be in their 70s. But I accepted it because I had rent and student loans to pay. On my very first day at work, I met Thelma. She was about 5 feet tall, in her mid-70s, and she looked fabulous in her sparkling silver stilettos that she wore every day. She was the most put-together woman I had ever met, and she was so dedicated to her work. She would often stay late to make sure that her fellow seniors got the services that they needed. Her dedication kept her physically strong and mentally sharp. She had more zest for life than anybody I had ever met, and she was so different from many of our clients who spent their days dwelling on the past or in the inevitable aches and pains that can come with aging. More than 25 years have gone by since I worked with Thelma. Experience and education have reinforced the valuable lesson that she taught me, one that can best be summed up in the words of Martin Luther King, who said, "Everybody can be great because everybody can serve." For the past 7 years, I've been a member of the Rotary Club of Portland, Oregon, and like all local Rotary Club members, I also belong to Rotary International, which is one of the oldest and largest service organizations in the world. Now, as the president of my club's charitable trust, I love tracking the financial generosity of my fellow members who contribute so much to a wide variety of worthwhile causes. But what impresses me even more is their commitment to service. Every year, members of my club volunteer in a wide array of service projects in areas that include domestic violence prevention, homeless solutions, community grants, international service, peace building, environmental protection, and polio eradication. Members of Rotary who embrace service are some of the most joyful and optimistic people I know. However, I am really worried that someday my club will have to cut back on its service work because we won't have enough volunteers and enough members. This problem is not unique to my club. Over the past 2 decades, Rotary has seen a 25% decrease in its membership across the United States. A lot of other great service organizations are also struggling. The Shriners, Masons, Elks, Lions, and many nonprofits have seen significant declines in both members and volunteers over the past few decades. Why is it that so many wonderful service organizations and great nonprofits are failing to recruit and retain members? Well, one of the biggest reasons I feel is that they continue to appeal to people's altruism while ignoring the motivating power of self-interest. I know this from personal experience. When I served as membership chair of my Rotary Club, I felt all I needed to do was to go out in the world and share the good news. Tell people about our great service work, and people would flock to join us. I failed. As membership chair, I saw membership decline. If service organizations and nonprofits want to not only survive, but thrive, They must move away from altruism and appeal directly to people's self-interest, even if that approach seems crass. It used to be that altruistic appeals were enough. Back in the day when a lot of people worked 40-hour work weeks and had long lunch hours and weekends free, they had time to join a service organization or volunteer for a nonprofit. And in good chunks of our country, community service was seen as something that good citizens just did. Now, finding members and volunteers is a lot more challenging. Stagnating middle-class wages mean that a lot of people are working longer hours simply to get by. And many of us have a hard time leaving work at the workplace because our jobs now follow us 24/7 through text messages and emails. So, how do we break through? How do we attract people in? Well, I think we need to lean in to self-interest and move away from this notion of altruism. And this may sound rather self-serving to many of you. But here's the thing. If we have service organizations and nonprofits aren't growing, we could be very proud of ourselves, but we're going to die. And we need to give ourselves permission to better ourselves through service so we can sustain our commitment to serving others. We now live in this age in which we are just deluged with information. We say we don't have time, but what if we just turned off our devices, our smartphones, our computers, and televisions for just a little bit of time, and instead of spending it there, we devoted it to service? Think of the benefits that we would get out of that. What are they? What benefits might we see from service? Well, I'm going to go through just some. I don't have time for all of them, but if you're looking to live a healthier life, service can provide that. There's a lot of research that has come out that has shown strong correlations between those who serve and those who enjoy good health. One recent study found that people who volunteer 200 hours a year were 40% less likely to suffer from hypertension than non-volunteers. This is due to their being social, active, and yes, altruistic. If you seek a longer life, consider service. Consider service. 40 international studies found up to a 22% reduction in mortality rates for those who serve. And it's not going to take as much time as you might think. One study found that people who volunteer just 25 hours a year for a cause or organization that's important to them see a significant increase in their life expectancy. The emotional benefits of service are also worth emphasizing. If you want tranquility, service actually kicks off a process that makes this happen. When you serve others, your body produces oxytocin, which is a hormone that buffers stress and puts you into a more relaxed state. If you're wanting more friendships, consider service. A recent study found that 25% of all Americans say they don't have a single friend or family member to confide in when they have a problem. This social isolation is incredibly alarming, and it also presents a major public health challenge. Lack of friendships has been found to be a more significant indicator of early death than obesity, smoking, or high blood pressure. And when we serve others, we're associated with people who share similar values to ours. Can you imagine a better group of people to become potential friends? And when you serve others, what I've found is that oftentimes the people you're serving go on to become your friends as well. If you're craving happiness, service provides a way. When you serve, your brain is producing dopamine, which is this mood-elevating neurotransmitter. If you're runners, you've heard of this. You call it the runner's high. You get it from doing marathons and all these extreme events. Here's the good news. You don't have to run anywhere. You do not have to run anywhere. You can stand in place, or if you want to, sit down, helping a single person, and you're going to get a huge dopamine rush. On top of that, When you serve others, you're giving your life a sense of purpose and mission that for many folks translates directly into higher levels of happiness. Yes, I can make a very compelling argument for service on scientific grounds. But for many of us, a much more convincing way to appreciate service is to look at the people we admire and see what they get out of it. My 86-year-old father and 81-year-old mother moved into an adult living community a couple of years ago. When they made a transition from a home they had lived in for 40 years to a small apartment, I worried about how well they would adapt. My worries were unfounded. Now, when I try to call my parents on the phone, they're never home. They're out serving people. They volunteer in the community garden. They volunteer in the convenience store for residents. They volunteer in the local elementary school. They volunteer on the welcoming and leadership committees. They write articles for the community newspaper. They are doing so much stuff. My brothers and I are convinced that our parents look and act much younger than most people their ages because of their service work. They're so busy volunteering that they don't have time to dwell on the passing of friends and relatives or the many other challenges that can face people as they age. I'm convinced that their service has provided them with a quality of life uplift that absolutely no medicine could possibly deliver. My hope is that someday a lot more people in the world will have this benefit of service that my parents enjoy. For this to happen, service organizations and nonprofits need to do a much better job sharing how volunteers benefit from service rather than relying on altruistic appeals that have lost their impact. But none of us should wait for this to happen. Instead, we should go out and talk to the people we admire who serve and ask them how it makes them feel. There's an excellent chance we're going to hear variations of, I get so much more than I give. Then, let's ask them why. And listen very carefully to what they have to say. And let their why help motivate us to embrace the power of doing well for ourselves by doing good for others.